Okay, hello, welcome again to my channel. Hari ini adalah playthrough What Happened to Edith Finch Part 3 yang mungkin juga adalah part final. Gamenya menarik tapi kok kayaknya agak singkat, tapi ya bagus lah untuk ukuran game seperti ini ya. Di video kemarin saya perhatikan soundnya juga kurang agak keluar ya. Jadi sudah saya setting pada part yang ini. Ya kita langsung aja. Hey, look, I'm floating. Bye,
Mom spent
Milton.
months searching for my brother. Then she sealed the doors. Whatever Milton had found in the house, Mom didn't want it getting out. Mom definitely blamed Edie, but I think Lewis blamed himself.
So
After he graduated, he just spent more and more time in his room. Until Mom got him a job at the cannery.
I assume this is a Lewis Edith older brother from Anjay Kumar. Hey, what the fuck? I didn't mean to go up there. Lewis Hamilton.
Everyone always told me to stay out of Lewis's room. Except Lewis.
Why? Oh, there's Sisa over there. And from the looks of it, he likes nightlife, I think. There is broken damage. Okay. Let's go open this up.
Lewis's room smelled very, very familiar. That part of him lived on.
Wonderland Turbo. What the? It got a memory card in here. It is when Nintendo SNES combined with PlayStation, I think. He's smoking marijuana. Addict to narcotic, I see. But to be honest, I like the room because look at the view, it relax.
Dear Mrs. Finch, as Lewis's psychiatrist, I can understand your desire for an explanation. As I see it, the trouble began in January, shortly after we convinced your son to seek treatment for substance abuse. Newly sober, I believe Lewis first noticed the monotony of his daily life. He kept working at the cannery, but he withdrew part of himself. In our sessions, I saw the same behavior. His mind began to wander.
This part of RPG or something?
I asked him to describe it. He said he started small, imagining a labyrinth. He'd feel his way about.
Seeing this just make me hungry.
Then something moved. Bats and toads.
What is that? Dinosaur?
And things that have not names. He knew it was all in his head. But he took it very seriously. I had hoped he'd find himself. But he found something more. I worried about him then. Daydreaming at the cannery. I spoke with his boss. But he said Lewis had become a model employee. Methodical, tireless, focused. Like a whole new Lewis. So I let him go on. I even encouraged him. It seemed very promising at first. He told me he'd made a new friend. On the edge of a city he named Lewis Topia. He built the city up slowly, brick by brick. Then he made musicians. And songs for them to play. He talked about starting a band. And he was always humming something. Every day his imagination grew stronger. He no longer spoke at the cannery. But his chopping was as reliable as ever. Then one day it struck him that all the cheering crowds, even the stones under his feet, were all in his imagination. So he could do whatever he wished. He held an election for mayor. And he won.
What? I'm Mario?
They begged him to stay, but his mind was already wandering. It became a game for him. He'd conquer a city, then immediately push on. New Louisville.
What? Scared me some help.
St. Louis. He started drifting away from our reality. Minneapolis. Until one day he forgot to go home from the cannery. Even as his mother pleaded with him, part of Lewis kept sailing on. In Louisburg, he heard rumors of a handsome queen.
Because Queen is a girl and I don't want the LGBT came out here. Oh, India.
The queen was on her own quest for sinister serpents. He followed the sound of her silver harp. His chase led him to a golden palace east of the sun and west of the moon. Even then, his logic remained sound. He knew the world was all in his imagination. But he was so proud of having created it. In his own eyes, he'd become something greater than a king. For someone who'd never known success in the real world, I think it was overwhelming. And then it struck him that the real Lewis was not the one chopping salmon, but the one climbing the steps of a golden palace.
What? You confuse the reality with his imagination?
My imagination is as real as my body, he told me. It was hard to argue with him.
I become Louis then.
He began to forget the world we know.
And the sweets? Because of the marijuana things, narcotic.
I think it pained him to remember Lewis, the cannery worker. He began to despise the man with a royal contempt. I still thought I could save him. Even after he said he was being crowned king over all the lands of wonder. The palace would be packed with his companions. Including the wise Calico who'd insisted on advising him.
Hi, Molly.
His queen waited, holding his crown. There was only one thing left to do.
And then he oh
And the
my
rest I think you
god.
know. Mrs. Finch, your son was a kind man who will be missed by all of us who knew him.
My brother was really cool. I wish you could have met him.
Karena aku apa? Wow, gaming computer.
Lewis and I spent a lot of time playing games together, but he was surprisingly bad at them. He died a lot. On the way back from Lewis's funeral, my mom told me to start packing. She waited until the day before we left to tell Edie. I'm not sure if she wanted to make it easier or harder. I wish we'd stayed. But I understand why we left.
And why is that?
My mom ended up leaving everything behind.
It is really old. Town Finch, different way of careful feeling. Classroom. Home classroom. There's a prayer over there. Anjay Kumar. He love him. She love him, man.
What happened that night had been coming for a long time. Maybe it should have come sooner. But it had to end one way or another. All that's left now is to tell you about that last night.
And I think di apa namanya itu ya, di etik ya, di rumah itu kan ada yang belum kebuka satu.
That whole last day, Edie just watched us pack and didn't say a word. Until supper, when she raised her glass and said,
"To our final night together, and all our final nights apart."
Grandma, you know what I said about alcohol. Some of your medications are very
Edith,
specific.
I left a present for you in the hallway. Why don't you go open it? The grown-ups have to argue now.
I'm sorry, you're right. We're all leaving tomorrow. Let's just enjoy our last...
I'm not leaving.
Edith, you're excused.
the power had been shut off that morning, but Edie always had plenty of candles. When my mom sealed the library, I don't think she knew about the other entrance.
What about the attic? Hey.
Or that Edie had a key to it.
thing you're afraid of isn't going to end when you leave the house. Edith has a right to know these stories.
My children are dead because of your stories. I think it's best if Edith and I leave tonight. We'll have the nursing home send a van for you in the morning. Okay?
Okay.
Dear Edith, there's so many stories I wish I could tell you, but there's only time for one. This is about what happened on the night you were born. That night, the tide went way, way out. It was the first and last time I ever saw the old house aground. There'd been an earthquake out in the middle of the ocean. They called it the lowest tide in 1,000 years. God, it smelled awful. You know, I've seen that house every day of my life. But I never thought I'd go back to it. When the fog rolled in, I lost my way.
And then what happened?
I got turned around. I started seeing things.
Hi dear. Spectre Patronum.
Things I'd forgotten had ever existed.
Like?
But when I saw them, they felt like old friends.
What is
That night,
then?
a lot of things came back to me. Or maybe I came back to them.
The altars.
Things I can't explain, but that I need you to try and...
Edith, what are you doing in here?
It's mine.
Edith!
Mom, you're gonna rip it! Let go! I kicked and screamed, but Mom dragged me to the car. I never saw Great Grandma Edie again. The next morning, the van came to pick her up, but she was already gone. After that, we moved around a lot. We both tried to make the best of it. A few years went by.
And I went pregnant.
My mom didn't like to talk about it. But she started getting sick a lot. The rest happened pretty quickly. She got better for a while, and then she didn't. And then I was alone. The last Finch left alive.
Terus kamu ambilnya dari mana?
Until I found out about you.
Me?
I'm
Thank you.
still not sure what to tell you about all this. If we lived forever, maybe we'd have time to understand things. But as it is, I think the best we can do is try to open our eyes. And appreciate how strange and brief all of this is. This journal was supposed to be for you. But now I hope you'll never see it.
Oh,
I just want to meet you and tell you all these stories myself. But I guess if you're reading this now, things didn't work out that way.
Edith. Son.
This is where your story begins. I'm sorry I won't be there to see it. It's a lot to ask, but I don't want you to be sad that I'm gone. I want you to be amazed that any of us ever had a chance to be here at all. Good luck.
So I did die. And her son live. That doesn't explain. Where's Milton? And what happened to the house itself? And that doesn't explain what happened in the attic. I guess the bottom line is Edith Finch is haunted by a curse that happened over a generation and generation until the Edith. And Edith Finch is dead. Neil Druckmann, The Last of Us. Wow. The replay as story option is now available. Select edit to play from the beginning. Well, that's it. There's some course happen in the Finch family from the Odin that have wife Ingeborg and have a daughter named Eddie, married with Sven, have this 5 child. This one is died, and only this one married and have a child named Gregory cousin down married. Yeah, I don't think both of them is married. What a lonely. And has a 3 child. Milton Lewis Edith has a child. Sabin. Oke. Jadi terima kasih sudah menonton part 3 penantian. Masih belum menjawab ada apa sebenarnya di rumah itu, kutukannya itu berubah apa, tapi ya sudahlah. Let it be a mystery, tapi keseluruhan untuk game mungkin ini agak indie ya. Tapi tadi di playtesternya ada Neil Druckmann, dia itu adalah penulis story writernya The Last of Us sama The Last of Us 2, which is a good game, coolest game that I have played in PlayStation 4. 8 dari 10 lah game ini. Hanya saja kalau misalnya dijelaskan kutukan itu sebenarnya apa, lebih baik lagi sebenarnya. Okay, so I recommend this game to be played with. Get it if there is sale or pokoknya beli aja lah, keren soalnya. Oke, terima kasih, sekian dulu ya, semoga ada sequel untuk menjelaskan, tapi kayaknya nggak mungkin ada sequel ya. Terima kasih semua sudah menonton dan bye bye. Like, dislike, comment, or subscribe, dan terima kasih. Dadah.